I used to think I was the kind of woman who could spot a lie the way you spot lipstick on a coffee mug. Immediately, unmistakably, impossible to unsee. I'm Shannon. I notice patterns. I know the sound of Ricky's keys when he's had a good day versus a day that scraped him raw. I know the way his thumb taps his index finger when he's trying to hold a thought inside his teeth. So when this story began, when it cracked open and changed the shape of our relationship, I didn't see it coming because I'm careless. I saw it because I loved him enough to notice when he started moving through our life like he was trying not to leave footprints. It started on Halloween, which feels almost too on the nose, like the universe was winking, but at the time it just felt like cinnamon candles and cheap fog machine fluid and Jenna insisting that no costume was not an option. Ricky had been grumbling for days. "Costumes are humiliating," he said in our kitchen, cutting limes with unnecessary violence. "I don't get why everyone likes pretending to be someone else." "Because it's fun," I said, dusting flour off my hands from my doomed attempt at ghost-shaped cookies. "Also because you spend most of your life trying to be a very specific someone. Let yourself breathe for one night." He rolled his eyes, but the corner of his mouth twitched. That was Ricky, allergic to sentiment, secretly starving for it. "What are we going as?" I asked that morning, leaning against him while he poured coffee. "I don't know," he said. "A couple who stays home." I kissed his shoulder. "Terrifying, too scary." He sighed. "Fine, you pick. You." That's how we ended up at the thrift store after work, wandering through racks of sequins and velvet that still held the faint memory of other people's perfume. I was in my element, digging, imagining, building a whole character out of a scarf. Ricky trailed behind me like a bored cat. Then he stopped. I turned and saw him standing in front of a rack of dresses, not staring the way men stare at women, not hungry, not mocking, just fixed, like he'd found a word he couldn't pronounce but recognized anyway. "Ricky?" I asked gently. He blinked hard. "What?" "You're doing the 1,000-yard stare," I said. "Like you're about to enlist." He scoffed, but his ears went pink. He stepped closer, lifted a hand, and brushed the sleeve of a black velvet dress. The gesture was quiet and careful, like touching it mattered. Something in my chest tightened. It wasn't fear yet. It was a kind of alertness, the sense you get when you're standing near a door that might open. "Try it," I heard myself say. His hand snapped back. "No?" "Why not?" He stared at the floor like it had answers. "Because it's not for me." "Says who?" He glanced around like the mannequin in the corner might report him. "Everyone." That answer hit a nerve I didn't realize I'd been carrying. I was tired of everyone, tired of the rules that make people smaller. "It's Halloween," I said, keeping my voice light even though my pulse had sped up. "You can be a vampire, a zombie, a sexy pickle. Why is a dress the one thing that's illegal?" He swallowed. "It's stupid." "Then let it be stupid," I said softer. "Just try it in the fitting room. No one has to know." He hesitated long enough that I thought he'd bolt. Then he nodded once, sharp and quick, like if he nodded slowly, he'd change his mind. He chose a simple black dress, knee-length, not costumey, something you could wear to dinner. He grabbed a blonde wig with blunt bangs and a pair of scuffed heels that still looked elegant. He held everything like contraband. I waited outside the fitting room, pretending I wasn't vibrating. I listened to hangers slide, fabric rustle, Ricky mutter under his breath while wrestling with a zipper. "Shannon?" he called, voice tight. "Yeah?" "Don't laugh." "I won't," I said, and meant it. The curtain shifted. Ricky stepped out like he was stepping onto thin ice. The dress fit him better than it had any right to. The wig sat a little crooked, but it framed his face in a way that made his eyes look bigger, his cheekbones sharper. The heels changed his posture immediately, gave him a kind of unwilling grace, like his body had remembered a different rhythm. He wouldn't look at me. His gaze locked somewhere over my shoulder, jaw clenched. I didn't laugh. I didn't gasp. I just looked. "You look," I started. "Ridiculous," he finished quickly. "No," I said, stepping closer. "You look softer." His lips parted. "That's not a compliment." "It is, if you've been hard all your life," I said. He finally looked at me. Relief flickered, fragile, almost scared. Underneath it was something brighter, like recognition. I feel, he whispered, then shook his head, eyes darting to the mirror. Never mind. Tell me, I said. He stared at his reflection like it was a stranger he'd been waiting to meet. He lifted a trembling hand and touched the wig's bangs. I feel calm, he said, and his voice cracked. That was the first moment I understood this wasn't just a costume. Halloween night, he didn't do it as a joke. He didn't exaggerate or perform. He let me put on a soft red lipstick, and he watched himself in the mirror with a reverence that made my throat ache. At Jenna's party, people complimented her outfit. The first few times someone said, she, Ricky flinched, shoulders tightening like he was bracing for impact. But then, slowly, he stopped flinching, like his nervous system was learning a new truth. I caught him later on the back patio under string lights, the air cold enough to sting. He wasn't smoking, just standing near a cluster of people, listening, quiet. The wig caught gold in the light. You okay? I asked. He didn't look at me. I don't want to take it off, he said, voice small. My chest hurt. Then don't rush, I told him. He turned and looked at me, eyes glassy. Is it bad? No, I said, and my voice came out steady. Not with me. He exhaled like he'd been given permission to exist. November arrived like it always does, abrupt and gray. Pumpkins sagged, costumes vanished into closets. Life returned to its familiar shape. Work, dinners, laundry, the little rituals that make a relationship feel solid. Ricky folded the dress neatly, put it in a garment bag, and tucked it behind coats on the top shelf. The wig went into a box. The heels disappeared under a pile of shoes. For a while, it stayed there, or so I thought. But I started noticing small shifts, the kind you only see if you live close to someone. Longer showers, a new razor, more careful grooming, a different attention to his skin. Once, I caught him watching a makeup tutorial on his phone. He swiped away so fast it felt like I'd walked in on a prayer. And then there were the late nights. Ricky is a creature of routine. He hates last-minute changes. So when he started staying late at work, my stomach tightened with that familiar warning. Something doesn't fit. I didn't confront him right away. I told myself it was deadlines, stress, the season. I told myself not to be paranoid. Then, one Friday in December, he left his phone on the couch when he went to shower. Ricky never leaves his phone anywhere. It's like an extra limb. I wasn't trying to snoop. I was just moving it so I could sit down when the screen lit up with a notification, a name I didn't recognize, a message preview. Tonight, it read, same place, can't wait to see you. My body went cold, then hot. My heart started hammering in my throat. I told myself not to. I told myself I'm not that girlfriend. I told myself trust is not touching the screen. My thumb touched the screen anyway. The thread was short, flirty, not explicit, but unmistakable. Compliments, heart emojis, plans, and then I saw the sign-off. Call me Rina tonight. Rina, my eyes scanned upward, catching phrases like shards. You were so sweet last time. You looked gorgeous. I love when you let me buy you a drink. Miss you. Gorgeous. I set the phone down because my hands were shaking so hard I thought I'd drop it. The Christmas lights on our small tree blurred into soft stars, useless and cheerful. When Ricky came back into the room, towel around his waist, hair damp, he froze when he saw my face. What's wrong? He asked, already knowing. I didn't shout. I didn't throw the phone at him. I just said, Who is Rina? Silence poured into the room. He stared at me, then at the phone, and his shoulders sagged like something inside him finally gave out. It's me, he whispered. My mouth went dry. You mean? He nodded once, eyes dropping. After Halloween, I couldn't stop thinking about it, how it felt, how right it felt. He swallowed hard. I started trying stuff on when you were out, the dress, makeup, the wig, and then I made an account. A dating app, I said, because it wasn't really a question. His face crumpled. At first, it was just talking. I just wanted to know if anyone could see me like that and not laugh. And then he squeezed his eyes shut. I started going out sometimes, as her. As Rina, I said quietly. He nodded. There's a bar downtown. I go there. I meet men. The word men landed heavy and sharp. I waited for rage. I waited for the part of me that's supposed to feel disgust or humiliation. I did feel hurt, yes, like my ribs had been pried apart. But underneath it was something I could barely admit, even to myself, a low, electric curiosity, a spark. It made me furious with my own body. This was betrayal. This was secrecy. This should not be interesting. Do you do things with them? I asked, voice tight. His eyes snapped to mine, terrified. No, I swear, I flirt, I talk, sometimes I dance, sometimes someone touches my arm like it's normal, but I haven't slept with anyone. He looked like he was about to shatter. I didn't want to hurt you. There it was, the sentence people say when they've already hurt you. I stood up because if I stayed sitting, I might fall apart. I walked into the kitchen and gripped the counter, letting the cold surface anchor me. Behind me, I heard him stop in the doorway like he wasn't sure he was allowed to follow. What do you want? I asked without turning around. A long pause, then small and raw. I want to stop lying. I want to breathe. And I want you. I don't want to lose you. I turned then. He looked exhausted, ashamed, and also, beneath that, alive in a way I hadn't seen since Halloween. Like the secret was both poison and oxygen. I took a breath that hurt. Can I see her? He blinked. What? Rina, I said, voice trembling. Can I see Rina here, with me? He stared at me like I'd offered him something impossible. Are you sure? No, I admitted, but I'm not ready to be locked out of this. His throat bobbed. He nodded once, slow. Okay, he whispered. Just be gentle. The next night felt like a ritual. He brought out the garment bag like it held something sacred. The black dress lay on the bed, smooth and simple. The wig came out of its box. The heels sat on the floor like punctuation. He disappeared into the bathroom to change. I waited on the edge of the bed, palms damp, heart racing, like I was the one undressing. When he came out, I forgot to breathe. He'd shaved clean. His skin looked soft in the warm lamplight. The dress fit the same as before, but now it looked claimed. He'd practiced. His eyeliner was steadier, his lipstick a warm berry. The wig was styled into gentle waves. He stood in the doorway, cheeks flushed, eyes wide with fear, and I, without planning to, smiled. You look beautiful, I said. He flinched like he didn't trust the word. Don't say that like you're just being nice. I'm not, I said, stepping closer. I'm being honest. His eyes filled instantly. Something in him loosened. Hi, he said quietly, voice a little higher, not cartoonish, not fake, just tentative, like he was testing the air. Hi, I replied, and my throat tightened. Rina. At the name, his mouth trembled into a small, stunned smile. He sat on the stool in the bathroom while I did the finishing touches, powder, mascara, a careful line along the lid. I moved slowly, checking in with my voice and my body. Are you okay? I asked. He nodded, eyes closed. Are you? I'm terrified, I whispered, and kind of excited, which is confusing. He laughed once, shaky. You too? When we sat on the bed afterward, he told me about the name, how his aunt used to call him Rina as a joke when he was little, back before anyone taught him that softness was dangerous. He told me about the first time he walked into that bar downtown, shaking hands, nearly turning around, the bouncer barely glancing up. He told me how being called pretty felt like medicine. Listening, I felt my feelings rearrange. The hurt didn't disappear, but it shifted, making room for something else. Tenderness for the part of him that had been hiding. And the excitement, my God, it was still there. Quiet, steady, undeniable. A week later, I said the words out loud. Take me. His eyes widened. To the bar? Yes, I said, swallowing. Not to police you, not to steal it, but I don't want you living a whole life I'm not allowed to enter. He stared at me like he couldn't decide whether to cry. Okay, he said, okay, but if you want to leave, we leave. The first time we went out together, it wasn't glamorous. It was cold. The sidewalk was slick from old rain. My stomach flipped the whole drive. We chose a different bar than his usual, quieter, dimly lit, booths that felt like shelter. He wore the black dress under a long coat, simple earrings, heels that clicked softly on the floor of our apartment as he practiced walking to the door and back. When we arrived, people looked up and looked away. The room smelled like citrus and alcohol and something sweet burning in a candle. We slid into a booth. Rena sat beside me, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. I took her hand under the table, more for me than for her. A waitress approached and smiled. "What can I get you, ladies?" I felt Rena tense, then, slowly, soften. The word ladies settled on her like warm fabric. She didn't correct it. She just nodded slightly, eyes shining. "Vodka soda," she said, voice steady. I ordered a whiskey ginger because I needed something that felt like armor. After a while, a man approached. He wasn't crude or aggressive, just friendly, hands visible, voice calm, respectful distance. "Hey," he said, smiling at Rena. "Can I buy you a drink?" Rena froze for a fraction of a second and glanced at me. A question, a request for trust. My body responded with two competing sparks. Jealousy, sharp and instinctive, and excitement, bright as a match. I took a breath and said, "She already has one, but you can sit. I'm Shannon." The man blinked, surprised, then smiled. "Nice to meet you. I'm Mark." He talked to both of us, not ignoring me, not treating me like a guard dog. He asked Rena about her earrings. He asked me what music I liked. He made a joke about the lighting making everyone look like they were confessing secrets. Rena laughed, soft, delighted, and it hit me like a wave. She was luminous, not because she was performing, because she was allowed. When Mark eventually stood to leave, he did it with a polite nod and no pressure. "Have a good night," he said, sincere. Rena exhaled like she'd been holding her breath. "You were okay," she said, disbelief in her voice. "I wasn't," I admitted, then laughed a little. But I also was. Back home, when the makeup was wiped away and the wig set carefully on the dresser, we sat on the couch in the quiet. The hurt came back in a rush because quiet makes room for the truth. "I need to say this," I told him. "The lying hurt. It made me feel stupid. It made me feel like I wasn't your person." He nodded, eyes wet. "I know. I'm sorry." And I continued, cheeks burning. "I need to say something else, something I didn't expect." He looked at me, wary. "I'm excited," I said, voice shaking. "Not about the lying, about you, about her, about us doing this together." His mouth parted like he couldn't understand the words. "You're excited." "I know," I said, embarrassed. "I don't fully get it, but seeing you tonight, how happy you were, I felt proud and turned on and terrified, all at once." He stared at me like I'd handed him a lifeline. "I thought you were going to leave," he whispered. "I thought so too," I admitted, "but I don't want to lose you, and I don't want you to lose yourself." He cried then, quiet and shaking, and I moved closer, letting him lean into me. His tears soaked my sweatshirt. I held him until his breathing slowed. After that, we built something new, slowly, carefully, like rebuilding a house while still living in it. We set boundaries like railings on a bridge, not cages. No more secret accounts, no more disappearing without telling me. If he wanted to go out as Rena, we talked. Sometimes I came, sometimes she went alone, but with check-ins, with honesty, with the kind of transparency that made both of us feel exposed and safer at the same time. We talked about what flirting meant, what touch meant, what was okay and what wasn't. We talked about safety, about being mindful, about not letting the thrill of being seen become another kind of hiding. We also talked about language. "Do you want different pronouns when you're Rena?" I asked one night while we folded laundry, my voice gentle on purpose. Ricky paused, hands full of t-shirts. "Sometimes," he admitted, "when I'm dressed, it feels right." "Okay," I said, and it felt like stepping into a new room. "Then I'll do that." The first time I said it casually. "She's almost ready, give her a minute." Ricky froze in the hallway. Then his face opened into a grin so stunned it made my eyes burn. Little by little, she stopped being a secret and started being part of our life. Not a costume that stayed, not a joke, not a phase tucked away for special nights. A self. A door we learned how to open without slamming it. Months later, we went to one of Jenna's gatherings again. Nothing themed, just people and music and wine. Rena wore a black jumpsuit and a long coat, hair styled in soft waves, lipstick the berry shade she'd claimed as hers. She looked nervous on the sidewalk, fingers clenched around her clutch. "You're safe," I told her, squeezing her hand. With me. Inside, Jenna spotted us and went still for half a second. Then her face warmed into a smile that felt like sunshine in a cold room. "Oh my God," she said, and opened her arms. "Hi, gorgeous." Rena laughed and hugged her, and I saw that old fear flicker and then dissolve. No spectacle, no cruelty, just welcome. Later, on the porch steps, Rena leaned her head on my shoulder. The air smelled like damp plants and someone's expensive perfume. "I don't know what I did to deserve you," she murmured. I kissed her temple, careful and warm. "You stopped hiding," I said, "and you let me in." She exhaled, content. "I didn't think I could have both," she admitted. "I thought it was either you or this." "And now?" I asked. She looked at me, eyes shining. "Now it feels like I finally get to be whole." On the drive home, she kicked off her heels and laughed at herself. "My toes are filing a complaint," she said. I smiled, watching streetlights smear across the windshield. "You were brave," I told her. She glanced at me. "So were you." It was true, even if it wasn't the kind of bravery people clap for. It was quiet bravery, staying in the room when your feelings are messy, letting your definition of love stretch instead of snap, learning that trust isn't the absence of temptation or curiosity. It's the choice to tell the truth anyway. At home, we stood in the doorway, keys still in hand, the house dark and familiar. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Anything," I replied. Her voice shook a little. "Do you still want me?" I stepped closer, touched the edge of her hair, the soft wave of it. "I want you," I said. "And I want her. And I want us." Her eyes filled. She laughed quietly, disbelieving, like she'd been bracing for a tragedy and found tenderness instead. We didn't become perfect. We had hard nights, jealousy, old wounds, shame that tried to pull her back into hiding. We argued about timing, about trust, about what our future looked like. We learned how to apologize without making it a performance. We learned how to ask for reassurance without demanding it. But the difference, the thing that changed everything, was that we stopped treating her as a secret. That Halloween costume had awakened something in him, yes. But what it awakened in me surprised me even more. Not just acceptance, but excitement. Not just tolerance, but desire. A feeling that our relationship wasn't shrinking under the weight of a new truth. It was expanding, making space for a fuller version of the person I loved. The costume didn't stay like a haunting. It stayed like a door that finally opened. And this time, neither of us had to stand outside.